So before anybody starts complaining, I understand that this is kind of dark here, and hey, that's all right. Today is basically going to be about scaling, and solution-focused brief therapy, or short-term solution-focused brief therapy, and it's known by different names. But it's a short-term, goal-focused therapeutic approach which helps clients change by constructing solutions rather than dwelling on problems. Elements of the desired solution are already present in the client's life and become the basis for ongoing change. So we talk about what we talk about determines what we talk about. Talking about the problem makes it bigger. Talking about problems, about failures or deficits, make them bigger. So it's all about empowerment. And that's a little old word, but there's so many different things you can talk about. And what's important about solution-focused therapy are the questions that they ask, the questions that they don't ask, the things that they say, the things that they don't say, and the things that they do. And basically it's having restraint, looking for positives, not getting impressed with the stories of how something happened or the pathology, or the ideology of how something happened. History is not terribly important either. So these are the things that are part of the solution-focused brief therapy. They try to avoid interpretations, avoid implications. The client understands the client the best. And it's all about deconstructing and creating new frames or reconstructing new realities, contextualizing new realities, and inserting doubt into those old frames. So, scaling questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, if we went like this and created a scale with our hands, and this is the traditional method, with 1 being failure and 10 being complete success, how would you rate how you're doing with your problem right now? And when you rate yourself higher, what will you be doing differently? That's one way of asking the question. Rather than focusing on what needs to change or be changed, it may be more helpful to focus on what the change state will be like, that is, to focus on the non-problem future. Rather than counseling being driven by ideas about changing whatever problem led to the referral, we might orient things towards what things will be like when the client is ready to finish counseling. So basically scaling can be done in quite a few ways. This one used a negative and a positive. What I would really like to see is a positive and a positive, okay? So one way to, and it really isn't negative, but it's a different way of focusing, I guess, which was more in tune with the client, or what we believe is more in tune with the client. And see, that's the whole issue, is what we believe is not necessarily true. The client knows the illness. The client is not the illness, but they know their illness, or whatever is bothering them. They know their problem. What we're trying to get them to know is the solution. So, once again, we look at a scale. It's kind of hard to do it on this camera, but on a scale of 1 to 10, okay? 1 being you can hardly get out of bed in the morning, and 10 being you're feeling great, wonderful, dandy, everything is going your way, super. Okay, so that's a little superficial the way I said it, because I'm not really talking to anyone, well, to a client. That would be the scale. Where are you on that scale? And that's how you would start. So if they say a 5, what would you do next? What do you need to get to 6? What do you need to get to a 7? And there's also times when we could downgrade the scale. So if somebody's on a 7 and it feels as though that's, or wants to get to 7, and they're at, say, a 4, well, we can also impress upon them that it's wonderful to get to 7, or it's wonderful to get to 5 or 6. and that if they could make it to 7, or when they make it to 7, that'd be really super change. That would be like a 10 for them. So it's a play on words as well. A 4 for that particular individual, you could say, might be an 8 or a 9. And so once again, we're pushing the client, pushing them up, pushing them down, or pushing their language down. So there's a little bit of a confusion technique, I would say. And basically that's scaling in a nutshell. Trying to think of anything else I could add to scaling. But scaling, basically, get your scale 2 hands in the air, and this is 10, this is 1. What would it take? How to get out of bed in the morning? So 1 is you just want to sit in bed, relax, think positive thoughts. How do you get on? And 10 is where you are feeling confident, you're feeling well, you're feeling better, you're feeling like you don't need to come back to the system. And just the question of how one gets to where they want to go. So that's one of the things I would say about scaling, is it puts it in a different perspective. And I know that scaling's been even used with people that had schizophrenia, and how did they do that, you ask? Well, it was just a different language, and that's what it was all about, was the language that was being used in that solution-focused therapy. And so we throughout it all, though, it's sort of like we're asking the client to do something once again that they haven't done probably in a while, is to fight against, at least to me it would seem, against their illness or against their diagnosis or against their problem. To go back to the original mentality that they had, or a better mentality that they had at one time, which was one that was more consistent with getting where people wanted to be. And some of the basic assumption is change is constant and inevitable of short-term brief therapy. Small changes result in bigger changes. Since you can't change the past, concentrate on the future. People have the resources necessary to help themselves. They are the experts. Every human being, relationship, and situation is unique. Everything is interconnected. Every problem has at least one exception. Therapy is not the only way people change. There are many things that are therapeutic. So I thank you for watching this today. I hope you can use it in your own life, and that's between now and next time we meet. Here's your homework. Find ways that you've used this in your life. Now, perhaps you could use it with your kids, your husband, your wife, spouse, significant others, not to be pejorative in any way. See how you could bring this into a work situation, the scaling approach. And it's sort of just like counting. When I used to work in a store, we used to do customer service, I'd be running around the store, sort of like, they didn't have that position, but I felt like I took over that position of being on the floor a lot. Not in that context, but in the other context of, running a floor. And why did I call it running a floor? Because that's basically what you're doing. You're just trying to help customers. A lot of times there'd be interruptions, so you did a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 approach, and just segmented. What other steps are necessary that I need to get this day over with, basically, and help my customers as best as possible? So this is the same kind of context. It's just put it in a different way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 being the optimal, 1 being at the bottom. Now 2 could be, 1 could be optimal as well. Now I think that was the point that I sort of hinted upon before. So you could load it up both ways, where 1 and 10 are both super positive things and are advancements for your client or the customer. And you always try to please the customer. So thank you once again, and you have a great day.